What is up, Bills Mafia? Welcome into Shout at Buffalo Bills Football Podcast Preview Edition. It's the Bills and the Seahawks. I just got to Seattle. I know it's a little bit later on a Friday than we usually go, but I was hoping to, Ryan, I was hoping to go to the stadium, have like a live shot outside the stadium as the backdrop for the podcast. I'm driving to the stadium and I'm like, it's kind of getting dark. Like, let me look this up real quick. It gets dark here at 6 o'clock right now. So I'm like, that's not going to work because I'll be out in the middle of nowhere. I don't have any lighting. So I decided to just hustle over to the hotel, get set up. We got a game to preview. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. Excited to talk about this game. Some big injuries on both sides.
Indeed. We'll start there. But before we do, right now, Tops Friendly Markets has your ready-to-serve fan favorites this season. Let Tops do the cooking, and you'll be the MVP. Visit shop.topsmarkets.com and elevate your food game with the great selection of custom cakes, desserts, pizzas, sandwiches, fresh fruit, cheese trays, fried chicken, and so much more. Save time and easily shop from with the convenience of no fee pickup on all game day deals. There are no service fees, no tips, just the best deals in town. All right, Ryan, we got to start off on the Bills side, and we could maybe talk about which one hurts the most because for the Bills, they're going to be without Terrel Bernard, which I think is the marquee name here. And then on the Seahawks side of things, DK Metcalf, who was trending in a good direction earlier in the week. Coach came out and said the idea was that he was going to try to play, listed as doubtful. He's likely not going to go on Sunday. So you look at Bernard, what he means to the Bills defense. You look at DK Metcalf, what he obviously means to that explosive Seahawks passing game. Which piece do you feel like whichever team will miss more?
Yeah, I think they'll miss DK Metcalf a little bit more than Terrel Bernard, and that's not saying that Bernard's not important to this defense because we have seen how important he has been the last few weeks since he's returned from that pec injury from early in the season. But Metcalf leads this team in targets, receiving yards, touchdowns. He's just an absolute mismatch in terms of his physicality, size, speed. And it just kind of, I don't want to say it makes life easier for the Bills in terms of their secondary, but it does. I mean, at the end of the day, it does. Jackson Smith-Njigba, very good receiver. Tyler Lockett, very good receiver. Noah Fant, they have a good running backs that can catch the ball too. But losing Metcalf is losing one of their biggest weapons. Geno Smith's favorite target, I would say. I believe he also leads Seattle in targets too. So that's a big loss on the offensive side of the ball. And if the Bills can come out, which they have not started out strong these last few games, but if they can get out to a fast start, that's really going to help them because of some of the missing pieces they have on the defensive side of the ball.
The matchup part of this is really interesting for me because I think with DK Metcalf out, what is like the natural progression to what you think Seattle's going to do with their offense? Maybe lean into Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet, that two-headed monster in the backfield. They've had some explosive plays this season, but they haven't consistently, go back a couple weeks ago against the San Francisco 49ers, weren't really able to establish the run game, get it going. They kind of went away with it. And in certain games when they can't run the ball, they really lean into Geno in that passing game, let him kind of just air it out, throw it 30, 40, 50 times in a game. That to me is not the recipe for success. I think that they're going to try to run the ball against this Bills team. And without Bernard there, you start to wonder where their ability at the second level is to, keep in check that run game for Seattle, because Dorian Williams has been dealing with an injury all week. He doesn't have a designation. He's going to play, but you figure it's going to be Balin Spector there at the middle linebacker spot. I wonder if they don't try and maybe throw Joe Andreessen a bone and let him play in this game. I know it's probably not going to happen. Sean McDermott mentioned it today. Balin Spector's been a guy that's, been in their system for a couple of years, called him a good football player, a guy that has had some good moments at times. But to me, diagnosing pre-snap and then right after the snap in the run game is an area of concern that I have with Spector. He played in that Baltimore Ravens game, and it did not go well. I wonder if you just maybe let Andreessen have his chance. I know it was a vanilla game plan. I know it was a preseason game against the Steelers, but I thought he did a really good job against the run in that game. Do you think Sean McDermott tries to change things up?
If things don't go well early, I think he could try to change things up. I don't think necessarily he's going to come out in start the game with Andreessen in the mix. But if Balin Spector is struggling to diagnose, if he's struggling to make plays, then maybe you do try something different, because for all the good that he's had, he's taken some bad angles at times when he's been in games. He's missed some tackles. He's been out of place in coverage. And if that happens in a game like this, yeah, you probably do need to try something a little bit different at some point. But I would be shocked if he started the game with Andreessen and Dorian Williams in that case. But pivoting to Andreessen, that wouldn't necessarily shock me.
And I guess it's interesting because if you're Sean McDermott, and we've spent the whole week talking about these slow offensive starts for the Bills, you probably roll with Spector because you think that maybe you lit a fire up under this offense. Joe Brady, Josh Allen, Amari Cooper, Keon Coleman, Dalton Kincaid across the board here. The Bills are healthy on that side of the ball, and they've been in the lab this week trying to figure out how to get those slow starts from being a thing of the past. It's crazy to think about, Ryan. They've only had one game this season of the first 7 that they've played where they've had a lead at the end of the first quarter. And there's been a couple of 2-score deficits that they've taken into the second quarter. So that's something that I think I'm going to be watching really closely. Let's pivot real quick to the offensive side of the ball. I want to go back to defense in a minute. There's a big development at defensive tackle we'll talk about. Curtis Samuel is not going to play in this game. He's the lone offensive missing piece for the Buffalo Bills. This is a Seattle defense that's kind of shifting some parts around here this week. So you have Tyrell Dodson, who's been playing the middle linebacker spot. They go out and they trade for Ernest Jones this week. They want a little bit more veteran presence there, a more prototypical middle linebacker, moving Dodson on the outside. But I don't know. I don't know how quickly they're going to be able to figure things out there, shuffle in the deck at that second level. I think this could be a big-time James Cook game. The Bills are very healthy on their offensive line. You see a huge injury in Minnesota today, Christian Darrisaw going out for the season. And it gives you pause, Ryan, because you're like, the Bills have been so healthy the last year and a half on their offensive line. And, you want to knock on all the wood that you can find, but that kind of devastating season-long injury to a Deion Dawkins, to a Spencer Brown, really anybody on this line would be absolutely devastating to this offense. That's not the case right now. I think this could be a big James Cook, Ray Davis kind of game against the Seahawks.
Yeah, I think both teams are going to try to attack the linebacker position. We've already talked about Seattle a little bit, go after Balin Spector and Dorian Williams. If you're the Bills, you're going after Ernest Jones the fourth, and you're going after your old friend Tyrell Dodson. And, Dodson's moving to a spot that he played with the Bills, but it's not a spot he's used to playing there this season for Seattle. And Jones, as good as he was last week, and going back and watching that matchup against Tennessee, he was a bright spot on the defense for them. It's a new system. It's a new scheme. It's a lot to learn and handle and grasp in a matter of less than a week. So don't be surprised if Josh Allen and the Bills attack them through the passing game. But I also expect this to be a big run game as well for James Cook. Question in the chat here from Hobdog out of Australia about Ray Davis. I think Ray Davis is going to see an uptick in snaps as well. The only reason he wasn't as involved last week was he was dealing with that injury. He was on the injury report. Now you get him a little bit more involved in the game plan. Let him be, almost like a little thunder and lightning between him and James Cook.
I like a little bit more Ray Davis this week. I think that you're right on the money, and this could be a kind of game where, like, just where you want to impose your will physically. You could do that with James Cook. I mean, for all the talk that we have about Ray Davis being the physical runner and maybe wanting to add that element, I do think that you watch James Cook enough of his carries. He's a physical runner. He'll finish runs. He doesn't shy away from contact. I went back and watched the game against the Titans, and he didn't have a lot of production that game on the ground, but he finds a way to, like, get physical with people. So, Bill's healthy on the offensive side of the ball. Dawson Knox didn't practice on Wednesday. He will be available, doesn't have a designation, practice the rest of the week. So Curtis Samuel out. He's got the shoulder injury. He's been ruled out. He's the one guy of the mix, but it doesn't even feel like a big loss, right? Because he has not found a way to get implemented into this offense or onboarded into this offense. So now it's, I think it's Robert here. John Robert brings it up in the comment section. I do think this is the KJ Hamler game, Ryan. I think this is the game where they bring him up off the practice squad. They've already elevated Tyrell Shavers twice. So that third one, you have to either sign him to the 53-man roster or risk losing him. So I think that they probably keep that on the back burner, make KJ Hamler's elevation the first time this season and see what he can kind of do in that gadget role, because I still think that Curtis Samuel should be more than a gadget role player. And so if you could find a way for KJ Hamler to fit into what you want to do motion wise, and maybe the Bills can lean into a little bit more motion in this game, I like that idea.
Yeah, I don't hate that idea whatsoever. And, when it comes to Hamler, he can be a gadget guy in this game, though, because you look at this offense that the Bills currently have, they're very healthy. The Seahawks have to account for Cook and for Davis in the run game. They have to account for Amari Cooper and Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, the tight ends in Kincaid and Knox. So running a few gadget plays with KJ Hamler when you get him in the lineup, if he is elevated, it's not the worst plan in the world, but you watch a lot of these really good offenses, and watching the Thursday night football game last night, for instance, early on where the Vikings were moving the ball very well, you see how the defenses are so stressed out trying to cover Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. And that allowed a Trent Sherfield to run wide open across the middle of the field for an easy score early in that game. That could be a Hamler type of play in this matchup. It obviously could be a Khalil Shakir too, or however the Bills, play it with their top three guys. But there's a way with the depth that they have here and the talent they have at their top three wide receivers that a guy like Hamler could have, not a huge impact, but could make an impact play or two if elevated.
You make impact plays every day on the Insider text line, Ryan Talbot. And you could become an insider right now by texting 716-528-6727. Go to joinsubtext.com/shoutbuffalobills. It's a 2-week free trial, $3.99 a month after that. And the Shout text line is brought to you by Carrie C. Beyer, attorney with the law offices of Francis M. Litro, located at 237 Main Street in Buffalo, New York. If you or someone you know is seriously injured, give him a call, 716-852-1234, or check out litrolaw.com. All right, we've already mentioned one of the storylines of this game. Obviously, the injuries. We're going to get to the defensive side of the ball. Big development today with Dwayne Carter. We'll talk about that in a minute. But what's another big storyline going into this game? You talk about the injuries. You talk about the offense, trying to figure out a way to get it going earlier in this game. What's a big storyline that you're looking at in this game? Heading into, the Bills have a ton of room at 5-2 between them and the Jets and the Miami Dolphins in the division. Dolphins are getting Tua Tagovailoa back this week. The Jets have an advantageous matchup against the Patriots. Does it feel like, and if you have a different storyline, drop it. This is another one for me. It feels like there's a little bit of like sneaky importance in this game. Like not as almost as much, not like giving the Patriots or the Jets, and the Dolphins any like hope at all. If you lose a game and they both win, all of a sudden things start to shrink a little bit, and the Jets have a couple of easy games coming up.
Yeah, it is a big game for that in that respect. If they were to drop this game, they have a chance to at least bounce back the following week against Miami, for instance, and keep them at bay. But the Jets do have a very favorable schedule, so the Bills can't have another one of these letdowns where they drop a game or two in a row. So the Bills do have to be on their A game. I do think, despite some injuries on both sides of the ball, that this is a game that the Bills can still win. I didn't feel as confident in that Texans game a few weeks ago with all the injuries that had piled up. Bernard's a huge loss, but they've already played a few games without him this season where they have found ways to win, and it was mostly because the offense was able to put up a lot of points. And I think that Josh Allen can put up points against this team, Matt, but that kind of pivots to my storyline a little bit. Leslie Frazier, being the assistant head coach over in Seattle. He knows Sean McDermott. He knows the Sean McDermott defense. I think that will help Mike McDonald and Geno Smith, this offense in Seattle, know how to attack or how to try to attack this Bills defense, because while there's a lot of players that aren't here anymore that were there with Leslie Frazier, the concepts are the same. The way that McDermott likes to attack things, even though it's Babbage now calling the plays, it all remains the same. So I think Leslie Frazier is an interesting storyline to keep an eye on too on Sunday afternoon.
He is definitely. And how much do you think that the Sean McDermott, Bobby Babbage defense is the same as what it was under Leslie Frazier? I feel like they've been a little bit more aggressive. They haven't been blitzing a ton this year. They blitzed more last year. So there's a little bit of a juxtaposition there between the two seasons and maybe trying to figure out who they are. They're definitely leaning back heavily into the bend but don't break model. but they also have what I think it's been a long time since 2019 and all-pro Trey White season, right? Like, I think we're in the midst of what could end up being maybe even a second team, maybe first team all-pro season for Christian Benford. I know the interception numbers aren't there, but when you're talking about some of the advanced metrics and what Christian Benford has been in this defense, it's a scary team to play if you're going to be a team like Seattle who wants to attack on the outsides. You want to attack down the field. You want to try to go deep, and they obviously don't have one of their top deep threats in DK Metcalf, but Tyler Lockett is still there. They have some weapons in this offense, Jackson Smith and Jigma for the second and short area of the field. So I don't know. I don't know how much this is the same defense that Leslie Frazier had a big hand in operating. And I wonder how much they went away from some of the ideology of Leslie Frazier when he left.
It's a fair counterpoint. Yeah, I think Babbage has put his own spin on it. We've seen the adjustments, the way that they've been able to make some great plays in the second half of games. But when it comes to these, a lot of just the core concepts in general, though, I do still think there's some things there that are the same. So it's going to be interesting to monitor to see if Josh Allen and this offense have any issues, but also to see how Geno Smith and company attack Buffalo's defense, knowing that Leslie Frazier has kind of gone out there and told them, here's the best way to attack it.
Wolfgang's not a fan of the Yankees cap on. It's game one, baby. Just representing for the squad. Okay, so let's get back to the defensive side of the ball for the Bills. Defensive tackle Dwayne Carter, the rookie, who's really made some strides over the course of the season. Gets here to week 8. Really important piece at that second part of the rotation. He suffered a wrist injury. And what's weird about the injury, Ryan, is that he was on the injury report all week, but he was practicing in a limited fashion. I don't think anybody really had it on their radar that the bomb that Sean McDermott was going to drop today was going to be what it was, because it almost felt like he was trending in a good direction. Okay, he's limited. He's dealing with a wrist injury. Well, the Bills ended up putting him on injured reserve today, ruling him out earlier this morning. He's going to get surgery on that wrist. So this is something that's going to keep him out for the next 3 to 4 weeks. I think the fact that they're putting him on injured reserve right now is because they know definitively he's not going to be able to get back in time in that 3 to 4 week window. So let's start the clock now. If you're Sean McDermott and the Bills, have a chance to get him back sooner rather than later. But this is a significant loss, because if you look at their defensive line behind Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones, you have the rookie Zion Logue, who just joined the fray 3 or 4 weeks ago. You have Austin Johnson, who's been kind of in that quasi 1-tech, 3-tech hybrid role. Now he's going to fit more into the backup behind Ed Oliver. What do you do now if you're Sean McDermott? Do you stay status quo? Do you leave Logue in that spot behind Daquan Jones? Or are you going to maybe think about elevating an Elianku off the practice squad?
Yeah, I think they might just stay the status quo with Logue. And Logue's had some very low PFF grades, but there's something about his game that they liked when they signed him off the Atlanta's practice squad. I think that you want to keep giving him reps and opportunities, especially as you evaluate whether he can be a long-term piece of this rotation. But at least for Sunday. But if it does not go well, the Bills have to be serious about maybe going out and trying to trade for a defensive tackle or see what's out there on practice squads across the league, who's available. Dwayne Carter is a big loss because he was coming into his own as that rotational piece. He was making some plays. He had that 4th down stop last week, for instance, but wrist injuries are so tough for defensive linemen, defensive tackles in general, with the hand fighting, the pushing. I get that they were trying it out this week, and now at least you're starting the clock with Sunday's game just right around the corner. That'll count as game 1 for him. But it's definitely tough because, he was filling in that role nicely, popping every now and then, making some plays. And now you're wondering, do they have enough at defensive tackle again? Or is this an area now that has jumped to the top of their list in terms of trade deadline and assets and moves that they have to make?
It was already my number 1 before the injury. So now it's definitely getting bumped up a little bit. We'll get a really good look at Austin Johnson over the next couple of weeks and where they're at with him. I don't think that they have to panic. I think that you don't even need to swing for the fences. Like, I know a lot of people probably are out there like, for years, like Aaron Donald is a popular name out there. You know, you could probably look at a couple of teams that have, and I haven't really gone through that process yet, where, you know, the teams that are kind of eliminated. I'm sure Carolina might have do they still have the first rounder from a couple years ago? Derek, what is his name?
Brown?
I think, is it Derek Brown?
That name's just sounds familiar in my head for Carolina.
It's funny because a team like Carolina, they've been so irrelevant for so long. I don't spend a lot of time dialing in on their people. So they have Deshaun Williams. They picked him back up. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't see him. Is he injured? Maybe he's injured.
Maybe. I'm not sure. Maybe
Derek Brown.
That's the name that I popped in my head. I'm not
right?
sure if that's. I'm not sure. Yeah. But there will be some teams that are selling at the deadline. The problem is you're probably not going to get a significant difference maker. And not that they need one. They still have their starters in Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones. But generally speaking, you're probably going to get let's just see how this works out in the system. And that's what the Bills tried last year. It wasn't a trade, but they signed Linval Joseph off the couch last year around that time. And it worked here and there, but it wasn't a significant move. He played very few reps. I think that's where the boat that they're in right now is, let's take a flyer on a guy we think could fit. You're not necessarily going to be able to go out there and add someone that is an Amari Cooper-like move at defensive tackle.
Yeah, and I think John Robert makes a good point in here. I think DeJuan Smoot, I think he was dealing with a groin on Wednesday, practiced on Thursday and Friday, so it looks like he's good to go. He can kind of, you know, also help supplement the loss of a Dwayne Carter in the immediacy here. It is Derek Brown. He is out with injury right now. He also signed a 4-year, $96 million contract extension before the start of the season, so he's out. He's right out of there. Anyway, so it's going to be interesting to watch. Like, how do the Bills handle, being down Terrel Bernard, their quarterback on the defense, then up front, being down a Dwayne Carter? It's a huge spot for Ed Oliver. And, I want to get to the player of the game here that you're watching before we get to our prediction. For me, it's Greg Rousseau. He was absolutely dominant last week. It's crazy because I know a lot of times we put out those PFF grades and the insider text line. We talk about them a lot on the show. He got an 84.7 PFF grade, pass rush grade last week. Greg Rousseau did. He had 11 pressures, according to PFF, a sack, 4 hits, 6 pressures. I mean, his pass rush win percentage was 35.9, was better than the next two behind him combined if you added their percentages together. Right. So it was an elite kind of game. And again, this week, I was listening to Greg Cosell before on the plane ride out here. And he was talking about how bad things have been on the right side of the Seattle Seahawks offensive line on tape the last couple of weeks. I'm looking at Greg Rousseau. I'm looking at him to have another game like he did last week. And to me, that's the kind of difference maker that's how you force turnovers, right? Either hitting Geno Smith, making him make mistakes, or, over the course of a period of time, enough big plays happen that you get the ball back for your offense.
Yeah, I think that's a great player to watch. For me, it's the easiest player to pick, but it's Josh Allen. The Bills need to come out like they did against Miami, like they did against Jacksonville. They need to score and score at will. Score on their first 2 possessions, 2 of their first 3, 3 of their first 4. Really put Seattle in a bind, make them one-dimensional, make it so they're not testing running at that defensive tackle position, whether it's Oliver and Daquan Jones or one of the backups in that rotation at the time, or trying to attack even the linebackers in that run game. Make them one-dimensional, make it easier for your defense in this game where you are without arguably your star defender in Terrel Bernard.
My prediction here, it is prediction time. I'm going to get to it here. It goes in line with what you're talking about, like a fast start for the Bills. I think they're going to be able to get that against the Seattle defense that has all these moving parts like we talked about. And I also think that, like, going back to the start of the show, you run the football, you get Amari Cooper in a little bit more involved in the offense. I think that his snap count is going to jump considerably. I think we're going to see more Amari Cooper, less Mac Hollins. We'll see some Mac Hollins, especially in the run game. I don't think you have to run away from that. And without Curtis Samuel, there's going to be more snaps available. I think this could potentially be a really big Khalil Shakir game as well. And I just think the Bills are going to score enough points. I have a 34-24 Bills, and I have the Seahawks scoring 24 once, Bernard, it was known that he was going to be out, and then the Carter development. Otherwise, I probably would have made this a little bit bigger of a Bills win. What do you got, Ryan?
Yeah, I have the Bills winning this one 27-24. I think that, as you said, Amari Cooper sees a boost in his snaps. That helps. Seattle is getting Reek Woolen back at cornerback, a very freakish athlete. One of their, came on the scene as a rookie and kind of stole the show at that cornerback position. So that's a big boost for them. But this is going to be, the healthiest that the wide receiver room has been in a little bit, because, again, Khalil Shakir is a few weeks removed from that ankle injury. Keon Coleman's coming out the best game of his career. No issues there. And no issues, obviously, injury-wise with Amari Cooper, but now he's another week more comfortable with the playbook. You're going to see more reps there. That's going to free things up for Kincaid and Knox, and we already know how good this 1-2 punch can be at running back. So because all of those pieces on the Bills offense are available, I have the Bills being able to win this one. It's a close game. It's a tough environment. I know in the comments here I see it that it says 57% of the fans and 10s will be Bills fans based on some ticket data that was pulled. Even so, that's a tough place to play, and it'll be a very hard environment for the Bills.
What's not a tough place to play is Tops Friendly Markets on Sunday morning, and you want to slide right into there because it's going to be Slider Sunday. Looking to elevate your food game during this football season, Tops has teamed up with King's Hawaiian once again to bring you your delicious inspiration for terrific sliders from around the country. Head over to topsmarkets.com/slidersunday to explore all the great recipe ideas and more. All right, Ryan, that'll do it. We both got the Bills winning this one. We'll check it out on Sunday. I'm actually going to I told you before the show, I'm going to a comedy show tonight. I'm in town. They're 3 hours behind, so we got some time to kill here. I've really enjoyed this comic. His name's Morgan J. He does have you ever heard of him before?
I'm looking him up right now because I'm better with no, I've never seen him before.
So he calls himself the auto-tune comic. And so what he does is he's got an auto-tune machine, and he sings into it, and he goes around to the crowd, and he makes people randomly have to sing into the microphone. Wow. So it's a little bit dangerous, and I'm on the floor. So this could get real interesting real quick, but his clips on social media, I just think he's absolutely hilarious. So he's playing here in 9:45 local time show. So I'm going to hit it right now. Did Stanton just hit a bomb?
He did. They're up 2-1 now. They just gave up. They just let up a run in the last inning, and now Stanton came up with a 2-run homer because Judge, I think, struck out for what feels like the millionth time this postseason. But Stanton came up with a big hit. So
Giancarlo, dude, what a run he's on.
He's on a heater.
I think Colin Cowherd's going to have to do his power rankings of the top 10 players in the series over again. He had Stanton down at number 7.
Too low. Too low.
All right. For Ryan Talbot, I'm Matt Parrino. We'll see you Sunday, everybody. Enjoy your weekend. Take care.